Hey everybody, it is Kellen Nitro for Nitromaniac TV's Wrestling Unlimited, and it's that time of the year where we go ahead and honor and dishonor one of the great dirt sheet writers of all time, Mr. Dave Meltzer with the Wrestling Observer newsletter. He always does the Wrestling Observer Awards every year, and we are no exception. It's time for the Nitromaniac TV 2019 Wrestling Observer Meltzer Awards. These are the Wrestling Observer Awards as if we were Dave Meltzer. This is how we would pick them, at least, for the year of 2019. So, joining me on the line in that really convoluted intro, at least, as always, is the man who spearheaded this campaign a couple of years ago, and it's turned out to be one of the more popular videos every year on the channel. The one, the only mighty Moorhouse is on the line. Moorhouse, how is 2020 going for you so far, 1 week plus in?
I'm ready for 2030, I think. It's been a crazy week.
It's been a decade already. It's been insane. Notwithstanding, be that as it may, you know, whatever, all the Vince McMahon hyperboles throughout the years on his commentary. We'll get into the awards portion here shortly, but I want to touch off the top very quickly on two breaking news items that ended up happening over the past week or so in the wrestling world, and get your thoughts on them. Number one, of course, Wrestle Kingdom 14, not WrestleMania 14, Wrestle Kingdom 14 went down. If you want a full opinion piece, I did a couple of recap videos, and I did a recap video on New Year's Dash. They're on the channel. Go back and watch and listen and comment as you will, and be that as may. Just want to get your opinion on Jushin Thunder Liger finally retiring after 30 plus years in the squared circle. I think even a 31-year campaign as the Liger character, and even longer as Kichi Yamada. He's a former Stampede Wrestling alumnus. He is an icon in not only pro wrestling but Japanese MMA of all things. Your thoughts? Did you get a chance to watch a little bit of the ceremony? Have you seen clips of it?
I didn't see the New Year Dash stuff, but I did see his final matches at Kingdom.
Yeah.
What's the first match? Kind of a tribute through all his, and friendships that he's had over his 30-year career in Japan. Mm-hmm. So that was kind of special to watch and really fascinating to see all these old legends come out just for that match. The following night, we saw him in tag team against Takahashi, which was cool because I think it's more of a passing the torch to him.
And Dragon Lee as well, which was awesome.
Yeah. So there was a pass the torch moment to those two guys. There's not much about Liger. He's been everywhere, won everywhere. He's considered one of the foundations of the current cruiserweight division, or light heavyweight division. Mm-hmm. He's a living legend. That won't be the last time we'll see him. I think he'll still do a lot of non-wrestling roles in Japan. He'll still probably train at the dojo with the Young Lions. But yeah, just a hell of a career.
Well, he's already announced that he's going to do commentary work, and he's kind of jumped on to Japanese, like on New Japan World, for commentary full-time with New Japan. There's talk that they may be using him as a backstage agent for the junior heavyweight division, which, if that's the case, man, that's like having Wayne Gretzky coach your hockey team. I mean, I don't think there's anybody much better to, go over the matches with all this young and amazing talent, especially in the junior division that New Japan's got right now. Like, I mean, with the Takahashis and the ELPs and the Ishimoris and so on and on and on and on, we can talk about it. But it was a very touching, very fitting ceremony. I'm glad they didn't do any angles out of it, which was refreshing for once. Very, as I don't want to say as the Japanese would say, honorable, but yeah, it was a ceremony filled with honor and that stuff. And just the outpouring of love and support from anybody in wrestling world towards Liger for that weekend was incredible. And Amazon wish list item, if anybody wants to get it from me, are those little Liger caps with the horns that kind of flap up and down.
It's a great moment. The evil person in me and the booker in me, I would have had Kenta come out and just destroy him and build more Kenta heat.
Tying it back to 2019 and the Meltzers and what we're going to be talking about here momentarily, his 2019 compared to his 2020 is a world of difference. He's gone from not being very happy, I should say, and wrestling on the Worlds Collide card at the Phoenix Convention Center and that stuff. Trust me, I was there. To all of a sudden he's main eventing for Wrestle Kingdom and coming up here for New Beginning for New Japan and that stuff. So yeah, kudos to Kenta. I'm really happy for him. It's a better spot for him, and I think he's happier doing this than anything else. So that's really good. Second thing I want to touch on quickly was something that just broke as we're recording this over the past 24 or 48 hours or so over on Twitter. So we can reset the counter days on wrestling Twitter without incident back to 0 Moorhouse. Tessa Blanchard had posted on her Twitter account that kind of a one of those women's empowerment statements and that stuff, which is really cool, really neat to see when athletes do that. The backlash off of that statement, though, was something to behold. It's to the point now where Impact Wrestling has a pay-per-view later tonight as we're recording this, and Blanchard is fighting for the Impact World title against Sami Callihan. This is a program that's been, basically built upon over the last calendar year or so, and tonight might be the blow-off for it. Have you seen any of this drama, and your thoughts on it going into tonight? Because this is something that's been kind of a hot topic on Twitter, and it's a situation where, okay, all these comments and all these things that she has allegedly had said or have done in the past, all of a sudden, the night before she's maybe scheduled to win a major North American Promotions Championship, are coming back to haunt her.
Just based on my history for the last year, I'm trying to get more of the story before I give a decision. Mm-hmm. I've been caught on the wrong end of that. There's a YouTuber that I watched who was accused of doing things that a few months later wasn't true. Mm-hmm. So now I'm trying to just, get all the information before I make a judgment. I mean, it's from what's going on, but we don't know the full story. We're getting multiple angles of this story. It's already affected her independent booking business, which, is sad. And maybe this is a good opportunity to make her the world champion, and then she could fight men and make the women happy. I don't know.
I put a poll up on my Twitter last night, basically asking, does this decision affect the booking for the pay-per-view later tonight for Impact? And a slight majority came away from it saying, no, it doesn't. Tessa will probably walk out with the belt anyway. So this, again, remains to be seen. It's an ongoing developing thing. And when we get into, the spring odds and sods and that stuff, it's something that we can revisit and maybe see a little bit later on down the line. But, again, just something that's been breaking over the past 24 to 48 hours or so. With all that news and opinion out of the way, it's time to do the 2019 Wrestling Observer Meltzer Awards, as we call them here on Nitromaniac TV's Wrestling Unlimited. Moorhouse, are you ready?
I am, Gene.
Okay. All right. The way that Dave has these split is there's a category A, which runs about 8 or 9 questions or so, or categories, I guess. And then the category B is basically kind of extra stuff that runs, how many we got here? I'm going to ballpark it and say about 30 questions or so, or 30 categories, to basically fill in. In past years, we have done separate WWE and independent categories for each. This year, we're throwing that out the window. It's just best that we think overall. It kind of saves time, and also it makes for interesting debate between, the two major competitors now, WWE and AEW in North America. So, with that going, and with that said, here we go. Here's our first category on the 2019 Meltzers. Worst gimmick of 2019. The worst gimmick of 2019. as Mr. Meeseeks makes a cameo here in the stream. Mr. Meeseeks, what say you on the worst gimmick of 2019?
I'm Mr. Meeseeks. The worst gimmick this year is Brandy Rhodes, the necromancer.
The Nightmare Collective Brandy Rhodes. Yeah, this is a weird little offshoot of AEW programming that is still yet to be really, I guess, explained much. I would say it's just, I mean, it consists now, as we go to air this weekend, as we record this, of a 51-year-old Japanese deathmatch legend.
Who nobody in North America knows.
Unless you watched FMW tapes when you were, growing up or whatever, or YouTube clips.
I read Chris Jericho's book, who talks about him a little bit.
A semi-booked regular from Shimmer in Melanie Cruz. Awesome Kong. And Brandy. That's your Nightmare Collective, everybody. It's a questionable thing.
There's groups right now in AEW that are occult or cultist.
Mm-hmm.
So this is like the B group, where the group A would be Evil Uno's team.
The Dark Order.
Yeah, the Dark Order.
Yeah, Dark Order, right. It's up there. See, this is the thing. I think that the worst gimmick of 2019, for my opinion, I'm going to jump to the WWE side. I'm going to go with the Raw brand, and the worst gimmick for 2019 to me is, how can I explain this in a PG way? Basically, Lana cheating on Rusev is the worst gimmick of 2019, in my opinion, and that storyline. Nobody gave a you-know-what when this storyline was first laid out, and now that it's basically stifled the re-debut of Liv Morgan, potentially has, stifled her career to the point where it's much like Tennille Dashwood, Emma in, 2017 or so, with the Emelina character and everything, kind of that same type of vibe. And then all of a sudden it's revealed that, oh no, she's not going to be Harley Quinn on TV, basically, to the Fiend's Joker. It's going to be more along the lines of, oh look, you're a lesbian lover for Lana.
My problem with this storyline is this is the second time it's been done this year in Raw.
Yeah, that's right, it is. It's a rehash. It's an absolute
the
rehash.
The Canalises did it first.
Yeah, exactly. And it wasn't good when the Canalises did it either. It led to one of them getting released, basically.
No, the Canalises are still there. They're just floating.
Oh, okay. I thought Mike left the company. Honestly.
No, he wants to, but they won't let him go.
Okay, yeah. No. Okay, that makes sense. But yeah, that's right. It's a rehash. It's a rehash of something. That's it. So there we go. Those are picks for worst gimmicks of 2019 right there. And now we flip the page and go with best gimmick of 2019. I'll lead off with this one. We'll kind of alternate as we go through the categories here and that stuff. So it's my turn to lead here. Best gimmick to me, 2019, hands down. This is one of the greatest reinventions of a character I have seen in a long time. Bray Wyatt, a.k.a. The Fiend. Man, we were seeing the vignette started the night after WrestleMania on Raw, and we kind of had a feeling that it was a Bray Wyatt thing, but we weren't sure about the buzzard puppet popping out of the box or anything. But boy, oh boy, come SummerSlam, holy, that pop was one of the loudest pops of the year for a brand new character, and that translated big time for the pay-per-view on the live broadcast on the WWE Network.
Can't argue with you there, Gene. Bray Wyatt's been amazing. The Fiend is a really cool character, as well as his children's TV show host character. So it's just been fun to watch. It
was the highest selling Halloween costume that WWEshop.com sold over Halloween of 2019. Everybody wanted to be the Fiend for Halloween.
Yeah, this is the same person that I picked, so I mean, there's no argument here.
Mm-hmm. It's a great. It takes a great performer to pull off that gimmick, and from what I've heard, the Fiend gimmick is basically carte blanche creative for Bray and maybe a small team of writers to come up with stuff for it and everything. But it's basically Bray's character, and it's awesome. It's really cool, and we've kind of seen. With the popularity of that, you kind of see some offshoots of that now, and that stuff, and slight knockoffs. I know Ring of Honor is kind of doing a House of a Thousand Corpses type thing with Vincent and kind of his crew of people. I mean, hell, over the past week they just debuted a giant, big, super heavyweight clown that kind of looked like the guy from House of a Thousand Corpses that I think unfortunately passed away earlier this year, but. And kind of along that vibe, as we were talking about earlier with the Liv Morgan stuff, there was a hot rumor going around that she was going to join Bray Wyatt as either A, Sister Abigail, or B, the kind of the Harley Quinn to the Fiend's Joker. And that would have been something that would have been really interesting to see, kind of roll out, but, we never got that, so.
Unfortunately, we got other stuff.
We got other stuff that we talked about earlier. So anyway, next category, promoter of the year.
Promoter of the year comes out of nowhere in September. Creates his own alternative thing. That's his Billy Corgan of the NWA.
Oh, went off the board a little bit. I love it. Yeah, NWA Powerrr with 3 R's debuted in September. Actually, it debuted, I think, about September, October-ish with that whole flood of programs that kind of launched that first week of October. Which was one of the most landmark things in 2019 was that first week of October where you had AEW debuting on TNT again. You had NXT debuting on USA, creating this Wednesday night war that we're currently in right now. You had the brand new SmackDown on Fox, which looks like some sort of futuristic wrestling program. It just blows my mind every time I watch it. The production wise and that stuff. Not so much the storyline content on that show, but just everything. But NWA Powerrr is a throwback. It is studio wrestling from the 1980s, upgraded to a 2020 standard. It's got
coming live from Atlanta.
Live from Atlanta, the GPB Studios. They have done one pay-per-view so far. They're gearing up for a second one on Rumble weekend, where they're going to crown a television champion, which is really cool. The fan base is small but very mighty. They're very vocal on social media. I'm kind of involved in their fan base a little bit. It's a really fun kind of offshoot to talk about on pro wrestling forums and that stuff, what's happening on this show. Billy Corgan should be commended for it. Dave Lagana should be commended for it. The guys over at the NWA pod, Adam Rotella and Gary Horn, should be commended for what they're doing to promote this product. And if you haven't seen it, it's free, which is awesome. You go check it out every Tuesday on YouTube. It's 6:05 Eastern. It streams, but it's available for on demand, I think, like shortly after that anyway, so you can go check it out. And they had a small hiccup with the Jim Cornette thing. That's got rectified. They brought in Stu Bennett as a color commentator, which was awesome. I think Joe Galli is going to be one of the voices to really listen to and kind of be awesome to hear his progression throughout 2020 as a younger commentator. And it's just, fingers crossed they keep Galli on that team, because I think he's got potential to be snapped up by either AEW or WWE in a year or two or so. So let's enjoy him while he is right now in NWA. He's got a great call to his calls and that stuff. But man, Eli Drake, James Storm, you name it. So that's...
You got Trevor Murdoch.
Yeah.
Damian Santo.
Nick Aldis, probably the most legit world champion in any company right now. The one guy that you would look at and say, yeah, that's a world champion right there. Just incredible, great program. Yeah, I got for promoter of the year just because of all the hot buzz talking about it and that stuff. It's got to be Tony Khan, AEW. The whole launch back in January, just everybody talking about it, and then the buzz into Double or Nothing weekend in May, and then the summer quote unquote test events they did into All Out, and then this launch of this brand new competitor to WWE, and really taking it to WWE the final quarter of 2019. It remains to be seen what happens in 2020. But, I think the count, I believe what the Wrestling Observer guys are saying now, it's like 10 weeks to 4 with one tie for AEW so far. So it's, and of course they didn't compete 1 week because of Christmas, and NXT didn't compete 1 week because of just doing a best of, basically.
The Westminster Dog Show.
I think it was, or something, or whatever, but so that's that. But these are going to be, NWA and AEW are going to be two promotions definitely to watch in 2020 going forward. So
the next category we got is the Best Booker.
Best Booker.
Yeah, and this is not the award just for Booker T. This is the best matchmaker, the best long-term writer, decision maker.
Okay.
My pick this year is Triple H.
NXT's Triple H, yes. They had a big year, too. Even before loading up and gearing up and competing for the Wednesday Night War, before then, I was able to be in attendance for two of the biggest NXT shows in history this past year. NXT TakeOver Phoenix, which featured an amazing matchup between, I'm trying to remember, I think it was Ricochet and Johnny Gargano for the North American belt. That was incredible. And then, of course, TakeOver New York with the match that was voted Match of the Year. I believe the 2 out of 3 Falls affair between Adam Cole and Johnny Gargano. That was for the NXT Championship, and that was incredible. One of the best matches during Mania weekend. Had I stayed with the WWE stuff on a travel package, that probably would have been my pick for match of the weekend, but I kind of deviated a bit because there was this little promotion called New Japan Pro Wrestling that was running Madison Square Garden, so I kind of had to be there for that. So, but
gotta go.
Yeah, exactly. So, but you got to do it. Got to do what you can. So, but yeah, that's a great choice. But for Best Booker for 2019, just taking into account the entire year. As I'm doing this on the fly too, I should also explain here. Moorhouse did the pre-work and wrote everything down. I'm just trying to come up off the top of my head what we're coming up with here for Best Booker and that stuff. Man, I think I'm going to have to go with your decision and go with Triple H just because, AEW did some great stuff. NWA did some great stuff throughout 2019 into 2020 and that stuff. Ring of Honor kind of fell off a little bit. New Japan was there. They kept out a consistent, run throughout. And Raw and SmackDown. Raw was basically a tire fire throughout 2019, and SmackDown was good, but predictable at times. So, NXT, Triple H, they've been doing some neat stuff. They're going to continue to do some neat stuff. I like this Worlds Collide concept that they're going to do here on Rumble Weekend and that stuff, and you name it. So it's going to be a lot of fun. But yes, I'm going to go with Triple H and NXT. So
the game.
220 section 1, Article 2. Question or category 28, 1-2-28. Worst promotion of the year. Oh boy. Wow. What should we start with? Where can we start with this one? There's been some real doozies this year. Do we start do we start at a local independent level on that stuff, or do we start with at a national level? I think we'll probably keep it at a national level just because the local indies they are what they are. So I'm not going to get into that.
It's a bit nuts here, and we'll be regionalizing ourselves too much.
Yeah, we don't want to do that. We don't want to exclude everybody. We'll just put it that way. So, inclusion-wise, I think the worst promotion of the year in... oh, it's your turn. Sorry. I'm jumping on you. This is like your turn to pick. Who do you have?
Worst promotion of the year. From Philadelphia, Ring of Honor.
I will have to agree with that. Man.
From an organization that up until about probably 3 or 4 years ago, they were right number 2, a solid number 2 promotion right behind WWE for exposure. They've crashed, and they're probably, I'd say they're just barely in the top 10 right now.
Mm-hmm. It's not so much a burn as it's just kind of more of like a whoa, man. It's they've kind of leveled out here. But man, there's a lot of empty seats at their shows. Like you look at some of the pictures online and that stuff, and we've discussed it on the channel. there's a very active comment section from our fall odds and sods of 2019 where we talked about Ring of Honor and its attendance woes and everything. That was back in September or October. I posted that video up. And since then, that's one of the most highly commented videos that we have on the channel is people talking about that. It was incredible to be at Madison Square Garden for that G1 Supercard Moorhouse, just due to the fact that, you know, it just seemed like both promotions were going to get such a lift off of this, and they needed it after Omega, the Bucks, Cody, that whole group decided to go and do their own thing. And then it just seemed like after that, everything just hit a brick wall with Ring of Honor. It was incredible. I want to say that, you know, obviously the scandals that Ring of Honor had didn't help throughout the year. The fan scandal between Bully Ray and the fan, I think out in Portland or whatever it was, over the I think it was the Madison Rain, or not Madison Rain, the Allure.
Was it Velvet Sky was?
Oh, Velvet Sky, that's what it was. Yeah, the Velvet Sky fan interaction or whatever was one thing.
There was the Kelly Klein pay concerns.
And in her subsequent, I guess, firing from the company over that.
Joey Mercury's tirade.
Joey Mercury's tirade over stuff, you name it.
Oh, and don't forget, they also destroyed their relationship with CMLL.
Yeah, CMLL's relationship was kind of turfed. The NWA relationship looks like it's kind of patched up a little bit because of Skrull going over to work NWA, and then as we recorded last night, Aldis showed up at a Ring of Honor Honor Club live stream show in Atlanta, and
but then their New Japan relationship's dying too.
Yeah, that's true too. That's it. So I didn't even see at Wrestle Kingdom where they do the whole rundown of the cards. I didn't even see a show for Honor Rising this year, the 2-night Ring of Honor New Japan thing where they'd have the Ring of Honor people come in and work with the you know, the New Japan people, right? So it's
there's no Honor Rising this year. Juice quit doing the indie dates for Ring of Honor because he just he hated working with Ring of Honor.
I heard that. I think maybe part of it might have been the way that the matches were perceived at the Garden, where the New Japan Pro Wrestling matches looked like that they were like a step and a cut above the Ring of Honor matches on the card.
Don't forget you brought in Enzo and Cass.
Bringing in Enzo and Cass during a big IWGP or Ring of Honor, I think both titles were on the line in that one. I have to go back and rewatch it.
It was a title unification match.
Title unification match, yeah. With Guerrillas of Destiny coming out on top and that stuff, and bringing in a team that Tama has said publicly on Twitter in the past that he would have zero interest in working with as, you know, kind of a run-in team. That stuff, and then they get potatoed by the Briscoes in the first 15 seconds of their run.
And never show up again.
Yeah, never show up again, yeah. Arrive, get beat up, and leave. You know, which makes me think that they're probably AEW bound at some point in 2020. We'll probably see Enzo and Cass over in AEW, but we'll see. I don't know. But Moorhouse is just shaking his head. That's no. Don't need it. But yeah, no, Ring of Honor, man. How the mighty have fallen over there. And yeah, Impact has overtaken Ring of Honor, I think. I think Ring of Honor's in that 5 spot right now in the top 5 promotions in North America, I would say.
MLW could be just right with them.
Yeah.
Ahead.
Yeah. I have MLW down as a soft 6 because this is how I have them ranked at the end of 2019 into 2020. I have WWE, of course, the 1,000-pound gorilla up top, number 1. I have AEW as number 2. I'll have, even though they're not North American based, I'll have New Japan as number 3, just due to their reach, and they did run some North American shows. Yeah. Impact number 4, Ring of Honor 5, and I'll put MLW on as a soft 6, maybe a 5.5.
in 5?
Man, yeah, that's another one too. I might have to put NWA tied with Ring of Honor now at this point. That's a good point. So you know that's the thing. I think NWA has done a lot too to you know, really solidify their brand like we had just discussed. So that's what I got. But yeah, we're in agreement here. Ring of Honor, worst promotion of the year. I think we might be in agreement with this next one here, too. Worst feud of the year. So I'll just go ahead and say it. Lana, Lashley, Rusev, the wedding angle that nobody wanted on Monday Night Raw is the worst feud of 2019.
But it's like The Room. It's terrible, but we watch it.
Yeah, you got a guy with an accent. You have a character acting as the quote unquote cuck in Bobby Lashley. I think I can say that. Sure, that's what they've been. Hell, Corey Graves said it on Raw one week, I think, or something. Again, talking about the Canales storyline instead of whatever. But and you have a hot blonde. Now you have two hot blondes, but yeah,
Two blondes. Yeah, I'm sure there'll be more people added eventually.
Two blondes don't make a right.
Yeah, no, it's just. It's the wrestling version of The Room.
It is the wrestling version of The Room. Yeah. I just feel bad for Rusev, but I hope that he gets a strong program with somebody coming out of this in 2020. That's it. It's going to take a long time for all four of these people to get the stench off of this off. So it's got to be ballistic programs for all four of them to do it. So.
That's what you get when Paul Heyman's your head creative.
Allow me to volley. We have a large supreme specimen of an athlete in Bobby Lashley, who likes blondes. So he goes after Rusev's blonde, who's in love with another blonde. and it's going to be extreme.
Oh, and this Rusev guy, he has a sex addiction. So that blonde is going to go with Bobby to have different sex.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, it's the worst feud of the year. And then followed up by that is the worst match of the year. And the worst match of the year is... Well, what's your pick for worst match of the year?
I have two, but I'm going to go with my first thought. And
Okay.
that's the Red Light Hell in a Cell.
Oh,
Between Seth and
Bray and Seth, yeah. So, story behind this is in the lead up to Hell in a Cell, myself, you, a mutual friend of ours, here comes Mongo, Dan, we all decided to go to a house show here in Edmonton for WWE. It was WWE Live at the new hockey arena here in town. And they had it was a Universal title match between Seth Rollins and Bray Wyatt, but it was a kind of not really a Hell in a Cell. It was just a normal Universal title type thing. And the character came out, and apparently it was a rare show for us because we got to see The Fiend wrestle under normal arena lighting. They didn't put the red hue on the lights or anything like that or whatever throughout the show.
It was still, I think it was only his third match as that character. Mm-hmm. So it was still a practice run.
That's right. Fast forward to Hell in a Cell, and all of a sudden, sex lighting.
Yep. So you not only could you barely see anything, they were in a cage, mm-hmm. And multiple finishers and a DQ finish.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, how do you get a disqualification finish in a Hell in a Cell match in which there are no rules? The only way to win is pinfall or submission. So, I don't know. That's just one of those deals that that's the sands of the hourglass turn, so turn the days of our life, or something. I don't know. But worst match of the year. There, I'm trying to think of either if there were any worst ones or not.
There was one, but you don't watch those events, so.
Oh, okay. Well, do tell anyway. Go ahead and throw that out there.
How would we like to see a 53-year-old Goldberg fight a 51-year-old Undertaker?
Oh, yes. Okay. So, yeah, that was going to be my pick for worst match of the year, too. It was so bad, they had to bring both characters back later in the year on major cards for make goods. That's what it was. Yeah, that was the Crown. Was that Crown Jewel?
That was Crown Jewel's main event.
Crown Jewel's main event was Goldberg Undertaker. Yep. Man, yeah, it was such a terrible thing. There's a great documentary on Goldberg on the WWE Network that kind of details his 2019 through everything through. Was his Hall of Fame induction this year? It wasn't it?
It was Hall of Fame, then Undertaker, then he fought Dolph.
That's right. And everyone's like, well, Kellen, you should know that. You were there. I was like, well, no, I wasn't. I was watching, Enzo and Cass jump the barrier at MSG while some legit dude jumped the barrier at the Hall of Fame trying to attack Bret the Hitman Hart and ended up eating probably the stiffest right-hand shot of the year from Dash Dawson, which was amazing. If you go back and watch the video that's online about it, and that's just a short right-hander, that punch of the year. It's an unofficial award here for the Meltzers, but I'll give Dash Dawson
Scott Dawson.
Yeah, Dash Wilder. Sorry, not Dash Dawson. The Dash Wilder, the punch of the year. I'll give Dash the pass I'll give Dash the punch of the year. Is what I'm trying to say. And yeah, just a quick short right-hander rocking a really awesome chalk line Hart Foundation satin jacket too. So his fashion choice for the night was on par. And I became huge fans that night of Travis Brown, who's Ronda Rousey's husband, and Dash Wilder, just for what they did. They were amazing people. So, kudos.
Both Dash and Dawson came out, and Travis, and I think Big E was also in the fray. And
yeah, so there we go. So that's worst match of the year. We had our two picks there, and there we go. And now I think we might have a unanimous choice here for this next one. Worst television show of 2019. It's got to be again Monday Night Raw.
Yep, it's a 3-hour show of mess storylines and sex at the end.
This is year 6 of me complaining about this, and year 4 on this channel complaining about this or something. Drop the extra hour and make it 2 hours, for the love of God, please. We do not want 3 hours of this crap every Monday. We got stuff to do. We can't afford to watch your crappy program over 2 days. So just, make it like SmackDown. Make it 2 hours. If you want to sell some advertising time to people and that stuff, you have NXT on Wednesdays. Push that advertising to Wednesdays. I'm sure the advertisers would be a lot happier with fans talking positively about their products being featured on NXT than they would negatively about their products being on Monday Night Raw, which is terrible.
How do you have a life if you're a WWE fan? 3 hours of Raw, 2 hours of NXT, 1 hour of UK, 2 hours of SmackDown, 1 hour of 205, 1 hour of Superstars, 1 hour main event.
And then you get like what we got this weekend as we're recording it, where, oh, hey, there's a takeover on, Sunday with the UK guys. Or, next weekend where, oh, hey, there's it's not really a takeover special, but it's a Worlds Collide special. And, yeah, and then the next night, oh, Royal Rumble, right, And then sandwiched between that, Friday Night SmackDown, Monday Night Raw. And it's like, guys, you don't have to make every weekend like WrestleMania weekend. That's the cool part about Mania weekend is it's once a year. And you can handle that once a year. It's oversaturation. It was oversaturation about 6 or 7 years ago. It's like the paper bag is decaying in the gutter with the end of it blowing out now at this point. That's how bad it is.
We've complained about it several times. There's just too much WWE. And this year I think they want to also do a tier system on their network where they're going to have house shows. So you can watch every house show now. In the States, they're going to roll that out. The problem is for its international viewers like us up here in Canada, we don't know what that means. So we might get them, we might not. Yep. So. It's just over. Maybe that's the way to fight competition. Just put too much that you can't watch the competition. 1-2-24. So the next question on here: most disgusting promotional tactic.
the most disgusting promotional tactic for 2019. Man, you look at this and you think about it, and it's just, you basically want to grab on like the wedding angle, and basically I think the most disgusting promotional tactic right now for me in 2019 is Vince McMahon still trying to create wrestling for Vince McMahon, because it doesn't work right now. He's at the age right now where he needs to bring in one or two other minds to kind of, be assistants on this thing, and kind of, bounce those ideas off of them to say, hey, does this work or not? And I think that's why.
But he did. He did do that.
Well, he did.
He brought in Paul. He brought in Eric, and he brought in Bruce.
But then he fired Eric because apparently
Eric was just collecting paychecks and taking naps.
And apparently Eric was just hanging out and catering. Well, tell Eric what to do. You invite him to the building,
So now Bruce is SmackDown's creative. So
creative guy. So yeah, I think it might be too far gone for them to even do anything. That's about the only problem, because we've seen like on SmackDown, you see the dog food angle of Corbin and Reigns and that stuff, and then on Raw we've talked about it ad nauseum with the wedding angle, and then earlier on in the year with the Canellis thing and that stuff, and so on and so forth. We had another incident of arson, and you know how much I hate arson on wrestling programs, because why the fuck?
that was on Raw too, though.
So, like, that's
now that you mention it, there is quite a divide between Raw's edgier angles and SmackDown's more tough.
Yeah, well, look who's running, right?
You got Paul on Raw and you got Bruce on SmackDown, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's ECW basically versus Houston Wrestling is what it is. So, I mean, that's what you've got. So, but yeah, that's the most disgusting promotional tactic for me for 2019 is just basically Vince McMahon. I guess we'll call it Vince McMahon attempting to be relevant in 2019.
Mine's different, but it also includes Vince McMahon.
Okay.
Mine is the Saudi plane hostage.
Oh, you know what? I think yours trumps mine, big time. I think you win the hand here for sure. Basically, the Saudi shows again this year, from front to back. Nothing ever goes right with those shows. I mean, I was on a national radio program discussing to the host how come nothing ever goes right with those shows, and just nothing ever goes right with those shows. Like, it's Murphy's Law. Anything that can go wrong will go wrong with that.
The problem on this one is I've heard many reports, but I think it's something to do with not paying for previous events. Vince getting mad at the regime retaliating by causing a plane delay for them to get back to America, and just getting completely out of hand with that. And also, Vince didn't stick around. He decided to take his private charter and let his wrestlers stranded.
What a leader, eh? That's like the general manager and the coach of the hockey team saying, well, we got our butts kicked in Helsinki. We got a home game in Edmonton 2 days from now. We're going to fly over. You jokers, fend for yourselves. We'll see you in Edmonton in 2 days. Yeah. That's.
And there was also, once he was in the air, he called some of his coordinators back in Saudi and said, get these guys and put them on a private jet. Yeah. Which also makes the divide between all the talent that aren't these guys.
But inadvertently, they ended up calling up the NXT guys, and that pretty much drop-kicked the angles and the programs for one of the best Survivor Series in maybe the decade.
Absolutely, and also that SmackDown that was using emergency wrestlers was one of the best, probably one of the top 10 SmackDowns of all time, too.
That's right, exactly. The NXT invasion on SmackDown that night in Buffalo. It was amazing, so. Next category here on the Meltzers is Worst Major Wrestling Show of 2019. We touched on it. We're going to go ahead, or I'm going to go ahead at least and say that it's a split to me between the two Saudi shows for WWE, because I boycotted those, and every time they'll go over there, I will boycott those shows. And I have to pick one for this category, so I'll go ahead and say Crown Jewel with Goldberg and Undertaker.
My pick is going to be the other one.
Super Showdown, okay.
Super Showdown featuring
Triple H.
Oh no, got him wrong. Super Showdown was Super Showdown was Goldberg Undertaker.
Oh, okay.
Crown Jewel was Brock Lesnar versus Cain Velasquez, and Tyson Fury versus Braun Strowman. Wrestlers fighting other sport combat fighters. Yeah, so both Saudi shows were absolutely terrible. Marketing, it's an exclusion for female wrestlers, and it's an exclusion for wrestlers that are wrestlers from countries that the Saudi kingdom doesn't support. So Sami Zayn doesn't go because he's not allowed to go. Kevin Owens doesn't go out of support of Sami. Daniel Bryan doesn't go because he doesn't believe in it.
Right, exactly. And so, yeah, we could throw them as a tie, a 1A or a 1B between Super Showdown and Crown Jewel. Just anything in this, with that Saudi Arabian regime right now is not great, and it's such for reasons that you talked about. So, to me, those are the two worst major wrestling shows of the year. The tie between Crown Jewel and Super Showdown. Now, switching gears, let's talk about things we really like. The best major wrestling show of the year. And this is interesting for me because I was able to be in person for my first Royal Rumble live in Phoenix this year, which I would put in my top 3 events of the year for sure. WrestleMania 35 in New York City at MetLife was a lot of fun as well. I'd put that actually behind the Rumble. I actually really, really did like the Rumble in 2019 and how that show, that match, or that entire weekend from front to back had just had a real nice epic flow to it, which was, it looked like it was setting up something real epic, which it did at the end of WrestleMania there with Becky winning the women's belt. So just barely edging out, because I really did like Wrestle Kingdom 13 as well last year with Tana and Omega and all of the implications off of that and everything. And we had, I believe that was also Jericho and Naito again for the Intercontinental belt at the time, because I think Jericho was walking in with the Intercontinental belt too. So we did that, and then looking at what AEW has done too and everything. So it did. I think just because I was in attendance for it, I'm going to say the Royal Rumble 2019 was my favorite show of 2019.
Yeah, it's Royal Rumble is always one of my favorite shows. It's always unexpected what's going to happen.
Yep.
My best major wrestling show will be the wrestling show that changed Escape, and that's Double or Nothing.
Oh yeah, that's such a landmark night in sports entertainment.
Well, it's not the best show for match wise. There was good matches, but for what it did to wrestling and what we're currently living in, it was the biggest show and the best show.
It was basically the second All In before we kind of got a gauge of what All Elite Wrestling was all about and what they were doing and that stuff. And so that still is a fun card to go back and watch. With now we get more of a knowledge of what they're doing from week to week and that stuff and everything. So, both great choices, I think, for shows of the year here on Nitromaniac TV's Wrestling Unlimited, and both kind of outside the boxes. I bet you guys thought we were both going to say like Wrestle Kingdom or Dominion or something like that because we're both huge New Japan fans. But nope, I'm going with a WWE card of all things, and he's going with a AEW card of all things. So there we go. And that's also even considering, too, the G1 Supercard at MSG. So, I mean, that plays a little bit in my mind. I was kind of thinking about that, too, is do I want to do the G1 or do a Royal Rumble? But just the uniqueness of having the Royal Rumble in a baseball stadium, and we're going to see that again coming up here as we record this in Houston in about a week or so. And that's it just gives that event such a special and a different feel to it. It's like a bigger grander feel. And I got a chance to talk to a high-ranking WWE official in the elevator at the hotel in Phoenix, who was basically asking a group of us our feedback and that stuff. And I told him point blank, I said, you guys keep running baseball stadiums for the Rumble, because that gives it such a unique feel and such a different feel to it. It's amazing.
And he listened to you, and he did it again.
Well, doot. Worst television announcer is next. Moorhouse, you got somebody for worst television announcer here?
I do, and he is part of the SmackDown team.
Okay.
This will be Corey Graves.
He's fallen out of favor a lot in 2019. And I can't completely understand why. I mean, a lot of it is, okay, yeah, he's a prick on social media, but he's fallen out of favor quite a bit.
Well, this year he did. Well, in fall this year, he attacked a guy who already suffers from a lot of bipolar issues and mental health issues.
Yeah, the moral stuff wasn't good.
And caused Ranallo to stop working for a few weeks because of it. Yeah,
exactly. That's kind of I mean, I'm trying to think of everybody across the board here and that stuff, and it's not so much a performance thing or whatever, or so on and so forth. There's a lot of people that are saying Jim Ross should get this for AEW on Dynamite and that stuff, just because he sounds uninterested at times and whatever. And so
Jungle
on.
Boy Jack Perry.
Yeah. Exactly. He's trying to get that Jungle Boy Jack or whatever. Or it's trending or whatever like that. And then, of course, his old broadcast partner, Jerry the King Lawler, is getting a lot of flack, too, for, like, why the heck did they bring him in and kick a young guy like Dio Madden out of the seat and that stuff. So, it's a situation where you can't win over on Monday Night Raw. So, yeah, but I'll go ahead and agree with you 100% there with Corey Graves. I think that, he's fallen out of favor so much. I, myself, am still a fan. 2019 just wasn't a good year for him, and I think the whole scandal off the beginning of the year between him, Carmella, and Corey's ex-wife that kind of was made public didn't help matters out whatsoever, so...
Best television announcers next, and I'm going with Excalibur.
He's good. He's really good at what he does. As opposed to just because that Wrestle Kingdom weekend recently is still in my head and that stuff, I'm going to put Kevin Kelly as my choice for best television announcer for 2019. I think that he's starting to implement a little bit of what the Japanese announcers do with the kind of the elongated soccer calls or the finishing moves and that stuff. Like the Tetsuya Naito Destino, like that, just kind of make it like a Euro soccer call almost and everything. But my vote is Kevin Kelly. Your vote is Excalibur. I think you can go no wrong with either. I think you're looking at potentially a 1A, 1B scenario, just depending on who you want to rank there with that. And even though he's had to deal with a bunch of crap this year, I'm going to go with... Well, Moro's still up there in the top three. Mauro Ranallo. He's had to deal with a bunch of crap this year too. Just with what he deals with on a day-to-day basis and that stuff, and then what we just talked about. But Vic Joseph as well on Raw has shown some real promise and has been very interesting to watch throughout 2019 and his evolution a little bit from 205 Live and that stuff on. And I think if you go back to Mania weekend and watch Joseph call the 205 Live after WrestleMania main event, which was one of my top 5 matches of the weekend between Tony Nese and Buddy Murphy, the rematch for the Cruiserweight title at Barclays Center. You watch that on a network. That is like, you get the feeling you're watching a Best of the Super Juniors final or something like that. That's what it felt like watching in the arena, and he just did an awesome job of conveying that during that match. So, but my vote, Kevin Kelly.
That's a fine. He was my first choice, and then I was like, well, maybe I like Excalibur. So
yeah, there we go. So quickly, Rookie of the Year here. We got a couple of choices to watch for in 2020 and beyond. Moorhouse, your choice was?
I'm picking the Young Lion Cup winner, Carl Fredericks.
He's like Randy Orton back in 2003. He's kind of got that build to him. Yeah.
He's going to be a star. He has a look. He has a lot of skill. Quite quick and agile, and also just he's it looks like your typical WWE wrestler.
Mm-hmm, exactly. So, I mean, that's such a awesome choice for Rookie of the Year. We're talking about not necessarily pure rookies in pro wrestling, but we're talking about people who are getting exposures on major promotions for the first time in their career and that stuff. My choice for Rookie of the Year is a girl that kind of got a little bit of a run in AEW towards the end of the year and that stuff, and into 2020, and it looks to be a big part of their plans in 2020, and that's Chris Statlander. Got a chance to watch her at the Shimmer card in New York City, actually at La Boom in Queens, where they do a lot of the Evolve tapings and stuff like that. And she wrestled actually the NWA Women's Champion Allison Kay in a match. And it's one of the funniest comedic matches you'll see out of 2019, but it's also one of the hardest hitting kind of strong style Joshi style matches you'll see in 2019 as well. It was a great mix, and you could tell that she was bound for big things coming off of that, and for AEW to swoop her up is a smart signing, and we'll see a lot more of her obviously in 2020 and beyond a little bit. So the next two categories here are overrated and underrated for 2019. So I'll start with the overrated for 2019. I have a very, very good feeling that a lot of people think of this wrestler and this character as overrated right now, especially put in the position that he's at. And he is kind of responsible for kind of the draw, or the lackluster draw that the summer of 2019 had for WWE, especially the Raw brand. Baron Corbin, I think, is one of the most overrated wrestlers in WWE right now and across the wrestling world in 2019. Especially with them throwing the King of the Ring on him. I mean, I understand they have to do something, but just bland. And I don't know what they were trying to do with him, trying to get with him with this and that stuff, but you got a guy that looks like a douchebag walking out to the ring and acting like a douchebag. You're gonna turn off the TV because this is a douchebag waiter from TGI Fridays or something like that, So and underrated for this year that I got, just thinking off the top of my head, who really doesn't get much love and deserves a lot of love out there on the wrestling scene and that stuff. I'd have to go with, I think honestly, just because of the promotion that he's in and everything, but I think a lot of people are going to see more of him in 2020 is Nick Aldis. I think that just him being the NWA champion and that stuff, and I think he's vastly underrated with what he does. I think he is just he's amazing, and now with this heel turn and that stuff, and starting his own faction, the Strictly Business faction in NWA and that stuff, I think he is probably the most underrated talent in North America right now for what he is, which is a world champion. So it's along the lines where you take my pick for most overrated and underrated, and if you were to swap them in promotions and that stuff, if you were to take all this and put him in WWE, and you take Corbin and put him down in NWA, I think it probably would benefit both brands if they did that, So it's wild.
For myself, I'm going to pick the most overrated as the WWE Universal Champion for most of the year, Seth Rollins.
Okay.
He just hasn't had great programs, and people just he was hot to start the year, and people just got against him, even though he was playing the babyface, which is never a good thing. Most underrated for me is the one who keeps getting extensions on his contract until recently, Luke Harper.
Yeah. Well, hey, there's rumblings now and that stuff. If you've taken a look at Twitter recently as we record this, that he was at a minor league hockey game for one of those quote unquote wrestling nights, booked alongside Sammy Guevara of AEW. So let the rumblings commence there. Maybe Harper, Brody Lee, whatever, makes his way to AEW sometime in 2020. But
I think we will see him again as Brody Lee very soon. Just not till March, probably.
Oh, probably. Yeah.
because that's when his no compete is over. Yeah, for a guy who really wanted to wrestle and being told we got nothing for you, we got nothing for you, we got nothing for you all year, I can understand how frustrated he is.
Yeah, exactly. I think that I think that that's a guy that I mentioned on Twitter. You sign him to New Japan, you book him like Bruiser Brody, and I think the Japanese fans just go nuts over him for sure. Put him in a ring with Archer and just have them just beat the heck out of each other.
Would you like to see Harper and Suzuki? Or
Yeah,
Harper
that'd be fun.
Suzuki.
That'd be fun. Harper and Suzuki would be great. Harper Moxley, of course. They had some great matches in WWE and so on. So that'd be great. So now we jump up to most charismatic. I think we're probably in agreement here. The most charismatic person in any promotion in 2019 is MJF. MLW, AEW. he's Roddy Piper in 1985, folks. It's amazing.
Yeah, no, he's one of the best talkers in wrestling right now. He just doesn't care. He's perfect heel because he's not a heel who's trying to get fans or sell T-shirts.
No, he's just a heel just because he's that's his outlook on life is a heel. So that's it. And he's better than everyone. That's why he's a heel. So and he'll emphatically tell you that he's better than everyone. So hey, that's a great gimmick for him, and he's in a great spot right now, which is obviously AEW. So it's incredible to see him kind of grow with that brand and that stuff. And he'll be a world champion in AEW one day for sure. Whether it's the end of 2020 or so, who knows? But he'll be a world champion for sure for AEW.
Absolutely.
At some point, yeah.
You have to think we were really only exposed about a year and a half ago at All In.
Yep, exactly. It was kind of the lead up towards that and that stuff. And we knew him a little bit from the indies and that stuff, from the stuff that kind of leaks on YouTube a little bit and whatever, and the beefs with Alicia Tout with the Ambi channel and that stuff, and a couple of other things that he's done in the past that are kind of real classic bits if you haven't had a chance to watch them. So it'll be a lot of fun to see him work in 2020, and if he's booked at a card near you, go see him, because this is greatness in the making here, folks. So. Mm-hmm. Most improved for 2019.
Yeah, so most improved. My choice is Kenta, who left WWE as just a failed experiment. Came to New Japan. They tried to build him as a baby face. Nobody was buying it, so they just had him join Bullet Club, and he's eating for leadership of the club, and he's one of the most hated people in Japan.
What a difference a year makes. This time last year, he was a sad dude, wondering where the heck he was going to do with his career and everything, what he was going to do, where he was going, whatever. He leaves WWE basically about the same time as it would have been big news had Moxley/Ambrose not submitted in his feelings to leave, or his resignation, I guess, Rumble weekend as well. Yeah. That kind of superseded everything, of course, in Phoenix that weekend. But, with him leaving, I'll never forget that last 205 Live, right after the cameras were turned off, and that's just before they went to the dark match there between, I think it was Charlotte and Asuka, had the dark match on the final night for us there for, quote-unquote, the SmackDown Women's title at that time. He walked out and he was selling the back of his neck and that stuff. And he kind of did a thing where he went behind his back and was waving at the crowd as he was, walking by and that stuff. We kind of got the feeling like, okay, this guy's jumping ship. He's going, at that point, because he kind of had that look on his face like, this was it. Thanks, folks. We'll see you later. And man, he has come back as. It was so much fun watching him sign in New Japan, and then on top of it, just become, I guess, this nuclear magnetic heel for New Japan over Wrestle Kingdom weekend, where just at the end of night 2, where Naito finally gets to the top of the mountain, he gets that Wrestle Kingdom moment, and he's going to do the whole grandstanding thing and thank the fans and whatever. All of a sudden, Kenta attacks him. So it's, just along the lines of, well, wrestling, so what have you done for me lately type business. And man, he's doing it. He's great. So Honorable mention, Buddy Murphy. I think that he's improved quite a bit, and Aleister Black. I think the feud that both of them had towards the end of 2019 have really solidified themselves as that's a potential WrestleMania program one day with both of those guys over a belt. That might be your Intercontinental or your U.S. title program, in a couple of years' time at a WrestleMania or so. So.
Which is nice that they're giving some stuff to Black for half of the year. He was on the main roster, but wasn't really being used at all.
Right, exactly. So, feud of the year in pro wrestling. What have you got for feud of the year?
I have Adam Cole, baby, versus Johnny Gargano.
So much fun to watch that match live at NXT New York, and then the subsequent matches on down the line at TakeOver 25, and so on and so forth. Great feuds, awesome matches. Yeah, that's my vote too for feud of the year. Gargano, Cole, that's what we'll remember 2019 for. And not bad considering that Gargano essentially was a replacement for Ciampa, who was hurt. Or not Gargano, but Cole was essentially a replacement for Ciampa, who was hurt.
Yep, because Ciampa and Gargano had the feud of the year last year, I think.
That's right. This was supposed to be the big blow-off year this year for that feud, but they never got around to it, and instead they kind of launched Adam Cole in, and this was a great feud in itself. So kudos to that for feud of the year. Honorable mention, Moxley Omega and AEW was a lot of fun to watch and to see. That was great. Trying to think what else would be on the honorable mention side. Hangman Pac was good. Becky Lynch versus basically Charlotte and Ronda going into WrestleMania was epic and a lot of fun, and it added a lot of gravitas to that match too, and that stuff. Miz and Shane McMahon as well too, going into WrestleMania 35 was a really well done feud, I thought, and the match itself was great. Yeah. So.
Kofi versus Orton was okay.
Kofi versus Orton was good. It's just tons and tons of great feuds in wrestling in 2019. So go right across the board, check it out. Heck, even with the NWA, the Aldous Tim Storm feud that seems to be kind of still smoldering quite a bit right now, and that stuff is a lot of fun to check out and see over in NWA.
Imperium versus Mustache Mountain's good.
Yeah, right across the line. So, name a promotion, it's probably got a pretty decent feud to it in 2019. But the best one, Cole and Gargano. So, best box office draw.
The best box office draw, my opinion, that he sells tickets whenever he's in town, would be Kenny Omega. People just want to see Omega live.
He sells merch at events that he's not even part of. I mean, like, I'm wearing a shirt here at WrestleCon in New York City and that stuff. And on day one, they still had autographed copies, for about, I think, like $40 or $60 American of the PWI 500 from 2018 that had Kenny Omega listed as the number one wrestler, right, of the year. And they had probably about 60 of them and whatever at the front table at the beginning of day one. At the end of day one, they were sold out already. Apparently, they sold out in the first hour. They were crazy. Like, I mean, these are just autographed copies that they took to some indie show that he was part of or something like that.
And he did a few signatures, and they just brought him with him.
That's right, exactly. And it's just high spots.
But that's how big of draws Omega is. Like, girls absolutely love him. Guys think he's one of the best wrestlers ever. He can all his matches are 3 stars or better. He's just the best box office draw. He's the best bout machine. And
I am going to play devil's advocate here, even though I am not the advocate for the WWE World Heavyweight Champion. But my pick for box office draw of the year is Brock Lesnar, because for this one single solitary reason, people now are paying tickets to see him lose. That's why. It's the oldest thing in the book with pro wrestling. People are paying to see Brock Lesnar lose at these events. He's not losing, but they're paying to see him lose. So,
too bad he only works 7 days a year.
I'll rank Omega slightly above Lesnar right now, but I think that's still the old thing with Lesnar is that people will pay to watch him lose, and he never loses. So that's the stick. That's the old Carney, scam, if you will. So
why did New Japan Supercard G1 sell out? Because everyone was going to be there.
Well, yeah, everybody thought that Omega was going to be there. Yeah, exactly. So now, Okada winning the IWGP belt was, quite the landmark moment, obviously, right? But
yeah, it's a good show, and Okada's a hell of a guy. But Omega, everyone thought it was going to be the Elite and Omega, and because at the time when it was announced, they were still part of the New Japan.
I bought the tickets, the Scuttlebutt and Wrestling, to buy it for that show, and that stuff was going to be the North American rematch of Okada Omega at MSG. And I'm like, there's no way in hell I am missing that. If there, what I thought, what would I rather watch at home? A boring Hall of Fame ceremony or Okada and Omega tear it up for 75 minutes the night before WrestleMania? Well, so
instead you got Okada White, which is White's okay.
Yeah, exactly. Women's Wrestling MVP of the year.
I wrote down a different name, but I changed it since.
Okay, go ahead.
So my MVP, even though the momentum is pretty much gone now, I'm gonna say Becky Lynch.
Becky Lynch, okay. Yeah, I mean the momentum with her is basically killed off. She still remains going into Rumble weekend here, and that's the final title holder from WrestleMania weekend last year, still with her title intact. So, with the Raw Women's belt. So, I mean that's a feat in itself and everything like that. I mean, we can talk. The name that you had initially on there. I'll go ahead and admit that you have already because I have access to your answers too. Is Tessa Blanchard, but obviously what we talked about off the top of the show, who knows what's going on there with that and so on and so forth, right? But yeah, I can't disagree anymore. Probably Becky Lynch, 100%, I would say.
You said disagree 100% more, though.
Oh, I meant agree. I meant to say agree. I don't have to disagree.
Yeah, if circumstances from what happened in Twitter Fallout didn't happen, I think Tessa would be a solid choice or solid number 2 to Becky, just because right now Tessa has a lot more momentum than Becky.
That might also be a politic thing, too. I mean, Callahan is friends with Jessica. Well, I think is friends or in a relationship with Jessica Havoc. I can't remember either or. But, and then on top of that, one of Havoc's friends is Allison Kay, and Allison Kay was one of the first to make the tweets about Tessa and so on. So I don't know. That could be just... It might also be something along the line... It might be something along the lines where they're trying to...
we don't know any.
Yeah, it might be something along the lines where they're trying to generate, last-minute buys for this pay-per-view, too. So, I mean, that's the thing, right? So...
Yeah, we don't know the whole story, but all I know is based on the start of the year, Becky was the Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Okay, non-heavyweight wrestling MVP. Go ahead, Ken.
I'm gonna say easily also a candidate for best wrestler of the year is Will Ospreay.
Will Ospreay? Yeah, that's a great choice. He's always doing just different stuff in the ring. Every match you get a chance to see him, and it's just incredible and just amazing to watch him work in the ring at that point. And it's
he defies gravity.
Great stuff. I'll second that. I'll put Ospreay down as my choice for non-heavyweight MVP of the year. The man had a great year, from never openweight champion to another junior heavyweight title run and that stuff. One maybe wonders if the the IWGP Heavyweight Championship is in his grasp coming up. Maybe a run coming up for that. So
yeah, he's recovering right now, but I think he's going to probably leave the junior heavyweight division and enter the G1.
I would think that would be his next logical step, is to do so. So, that would be really exciting to see him enter the heavyweight division for sure. So, European MVP, and this is kind of cool because with WWE, with the NXT UK opening up and that stuff, and it being easier than ever to watch European promotions go. We actually have an answer for this year, where in the past we might not have. So, just thinking about for the European MVP for 2019, and it's got to be, again, to me, the same guy that we just named as the non-heavyweight wrestling MVP. It's got to be Will Ospreay. The bottom line. Like, I still think that he's just a game changer. It's like watching Dynamite Kid in the 80s in the ring with him. So
he's just he flies. Like, he does some stuff in the air that nobody's ever done before.
That spot where he snaps out of a Hurricane Rana, like if Ibushi, like what he did with Ibushi, this was before 2019. I think it was like the latter end 20. Yeah, it was a build for Wrestle Kingdom there and that stuff, where he just snapped out of that Hurricane Rana and lands on his feet and just no sells it. That is like, that's Cirque du Soleil type stuff. That's like, wow,
My choice is going to be the hard-hitting Walter, who you don't want to take a chop from.
That's a great choice. Complete polar opposite to Will Ospreay.
They're completely different styles. Walter's one of the best brawlers probably right now in the business. He's just no nonsense ass kicker.
You have a fighter jet versus a Sherman tank, and talking about Ospreay versus Walter there, and all of a sudden a hell of a dream match. I would love to see both those guys go at it. That would have been fun. Currently now, that'd be great. So it might have already happened too. I gotta go back through YouTube and see exactly if it's happened on an indie show somewhere down the line or whatever, right? But so.
They both were in PWG, so I'm sure they saw each other.
Pretty sure, yeah, probably somewhere down the line. We check it out. So. The Mexican MVP, and there's a lot of choices here for that, but I'm going to go ahead and you have a name written down here, and just to be different than the name that you have written down, I'm going to go ahead and say his tag team partner. I'm going to say Rey Fenix is the MVP of the year for MVP for out of Mexico this year. I think Rey Fenix is a throwback to Rey Mysterio, how he was back in 96, 97, 98-ish. The guy is quick and fast, and he's kind of the perfect hybrid of kind of that late 90s lucha style mixed with the junior heavyweight style, if you get some sort of grasp out of it. So
that's a great choice. I took his older brother, Pentagon Jr., who's probably one of the best Mexican. He's not really a high flyer. He's more of a standard wrestler, but he can do the high flying moves when needed. But I think he's a lot more skilled with working with bigger men.
Exactly, for sure. For sure. And the Japanese MVP for 2019, I think we both are in agreement here. Kazuchika Okada.
Yep, absolutely. The Rainmaker does it again.
Highlight of my year was watching him wrestle live at MSG against Jay White. That was just an incredible match, a great way to close off a epic weekend, or a great addition to an epic weekend, I should say, in New York City. And it was a lot of fun watching that title change go down live. So it was really cool and a really historic building. And Okada still is the most money-making man right now in wrestling. So.
As the Rainmaker, he rains money. You got to see him live, and you also got to see Muto live, which I'm very of.
I saw Muto and Liger share the ring with Kenny King. That's how weird 2019 was.
One of those names does not belong.
At that point, I was just along for the ride. I was just like, all right, you know what? I'm here. This is happening. So I'm rolling with it. It's all good. So.
Yeah, you checked a lot of your Japanese talent off your bucket list now.
Yeah, that was just incredible. That's partially why I'm just kind of taking it easy in the early parts here, and maybe even the mid part of 2020 and that stuff. I think that maybe if there might be something that piques my eye, AEW wise, I might go and do something with that this year. But other than that, I think that it's just this year will be more closer to home type deal. So, but
Unless you want to go to Chicago.
well, hey, let's see what happens. I'm still, I'm still waiting to hear what's going down in Vegas, if you know what I'm saying. But we'll see what happens there on that side. Just because that, to get to Edmonton to Vegas and vice versa is a little bit easier on the old pocketbook ski than going to Edmonton to Chicago. So, the United States and Canadian MVP for 2019. This might be just United States MVP, but since we're Canadian, we just added an extra dash to it and make it the Canadian MVP as well.
That's the way it's taken from his list.
Oh, so. Really? So it's the United States and Canadian MVP. So that's it. All right. Well, go ahead with your choice, and then I'll name mine because I think we got two different names here. So
I'm taking the man who's carrying the torch for AEW, Chris Jericho.
Man, what a career resurgence over the past 3 years or so that he's had, eh? Just one of the greatest retransformations in pro wrestling history that we've seen. So,
I mean, he's lost a few steps in his athleticism, but he carries it with his charisma. So it works out and it evens out.
It's weird. He's lost a few steps in his athleticism, but his charisma has maybe gained, to the point where he's back to like late 90s Jericho. Like the heel Jericho from WCW, like the no limits, obnoxious.
Oblivious to himself.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's it. Like it's, that's got to be incredible. I want to get sentimental here with this pick and that stuff and just say that the United States Canadian MVP is you, the wrestling fans, for putting up with all the BS angles and that stuff over the past decade of the 2010s and that stuff and finally getting to the good stuff. But if we had to name a certain individual for the United States and a Canadian MVP for 2019, again, I think that a guy that... and this is off the board quite a bit, but I think a guy that's really kind of resurged himself twice in 2019 because of not only a promotion jump, but then a relapse with a lingering elbow issue and that stuff. Jon Moxley is my MVP for 2019. Leaves WWE under really questionable circumstances. Just not scandalous circumstances by any means or anything like that, but just the way they treated it was strange.
They made him a jobber, and they're trying to make him a Shield guy all the time.
They made him a jobber, but yet they were pushing him, and it was like, what, huh? What is going on? And
then they're like, and then do the Shield thing again. And he's like, I don't want to do the Shield thing again.
He's on his way out. Like, just leave it alone. Let it be. And then, shows up in AEW, creates this whole new thing for itself, and then adds an extra dimension to himself by jumping over to New Japan, is revealed as the Death Rider, and then shows up as that kind of iteration of Moxley. And it's like he takes a Ferrari in Kenny Omega and creates probably one of the most gruesome / disturbing death matches you'll see on major television at Full Gear in 2019. That's a hard match to watch over again, just due to the fact that I'm not a deathmatch fan, so it's not up there for me. But just very versatile. He's the Allen key wrench of pro wrestling. If he can, he's that little thing that shows up in the IKEA build it yourself kits, to help you put it together and that stuff. Like he's proved himself big time. So yeah, he's my United States / Canadian MVP for 2019.
That's a solid choice.
Yeah. So, all right. Pro Wrestling Match of the Year. As we get into the Category A awards, that wrapped up Category B. So now we go into Category A. Pro Wrestling Match of the Year.
I absolutely loved Cody and Dustin Rhodes. That was a heck of a match. The build was amazing. It was just the psychology of it was perfect almost. The
build, the old schoolness of it, the just basically everything along the lines of of it all in 2019 was great. So it was such a great deal. So that's it had non-wrestling fans, where this match was trending around the world and that stuff on Twitter, ask me about, okay, why was there so much blood? Does wrestling normally have that much blood and whatever and everything? And it kind of blew their minds when I told them, it's like, back in the day, back in the 80s and that stuff, that's when, we seen all this blood and all this, it's more of a hardcore style like that and that stuff, especially with the Southern promotions and everything. It was such a big deal. So
it reminded me a lot of Greg Valentine, Roddy Piper's dog collar match.
It did, yeah, exactly. Not my choice for match of the year, though. I will give that one. And considering my comments on this channel about him a few years ago, Moorhouse will point and laugh at me and that stuff. But Okada White G1 Supercard at MSG, to me, is match of the year. It was such a great match. Because I was there, and yes, okay, I get Jay White's character now. It's fine. I'll admit that. That's something that I was vehemently against last year at this time and whatever. And you were telling me about, different ways of how I could get on board with it and that stuff. So I tried for the year and that stuff, and I'm cool with it now. That's fine. I think just, that's another thing with them bringing in Kenta in the role that he is now in the Bullet Club and that stuff. It's kind of like, okay, cool. So now there might be in 2020 this power struggle between Kenta and Jay White now for the Bullet Club. So we'll see what happens.
Well, yeah, with White losing a lot and just having a kind of a character change right now, and then Kenta kind of becoming the new heel. So
exactly. So the best weekly television show of 2019. I think that we're going to be sticking with the Wednesday Night War for this one.
No, I switched my answer.
Oh, did you switch it? Okay, well, go ahead.
I'm choosing what I work. I usually get up for work about 4:30, and that gives me about an hour to get ready. And during that hour on Wednesday mornings, I watch the rerun of Powerrr.
So you're going NWA Powerrr.
I love Powerrr. It's very light to watch, and very entertaining, and also cheesy. But it knows it's cheesy. It's not ashamed of it.
The question mark is one of the greatest characters to come out of 2019. I know there's not a greatest character question. It's probably the best gimmick thing, but to me that the question mark is up there for one of the greatest character developments, right up there with the Fiend in 2019. Karate, yes, exactly. The Mongrovian National Anthem from the Into the Fire pay-per-view is one of the funniest moments in all of pro wrestling in 2019, and it's on YouTube, so go check it out if you haven't had a chance. It's on the NWA channel, and that's that whole 6-minute clip of his entrance, and then the Aaron Stevens promo, and then the anthem right after. Throw that on and smile. So
again, like I said, it's cheesy, but it's fun cheesy. It's like watching the Batmans from the 60s.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I want to say that the best weekly television show of the year this year is NXT. Just because it was available on the network before in its classic spot on Wednesday nights, and then it moved to USA and that stuff, and then taking it encompassed the full year. Dynamite, of course, debuted in October. That might be the best show for 2020. We'll see what happens. But for 2019, just to take into account everything on from the January through April bit of 2019, NXT far and away was the top program that WWE had going, and it was my favorite. But Dynamite, NWA Powerrr, and AEW Dark, all those programs are great to watch, and that's what I end up. My Tuesday nights are basically Powerrr, and then if I have time, if I feel like I want to watch a little bit more wrestling before I go to bed and that stuff, I'll throw on AEW Dark, and then if not, whatever, but then I'll catch Dynamite typically on a PVR on Wednesday. So, so that's how I do. So. Best on interview. Oh, no, wait, sorry. I skipped one. Promotion of the year. Promotion of the year for 2019. Again, I'm going to go with NXT for promotion of the year.
You see my answer. Yeah. I had the same thing. I'm not changing it. NXT's been solid all year. They've been putting on their best stuff at the tail end of the year to try to compete with AEW. They have had rare misses where AEW has had some misses.
Right, exactly. So there we go. Best on interviews was next. The best on interviews for 2019. We could get, I mean, MJF is up there for sure. And he probably is one of the best on interviews. I'm going to give it to Jericho, though, just due to the fact of the Ballistic Wrestle Kingdom build for Naito, and again, the Ballistic Wrestle Kingdom build again for him and Tanahashi, and the Ballistic AEW stuff, the Le Champion celebration on Dynamite and everything, and the Inner Circle and all of that stuff. Just a dynamic performer. It's can't miss TV when Jericho's on now, in my opinion. Dude is on fire.
No, I'm fine with that choice. I chose MJF just because he's such a natural talker. You tell he doesn't prepare and he reacts properly to his audience and changes the direction he was going to go based on that.
But we all know who the real best of interviews is in 2019. The question mark is the GOAT. I think I slightly broke the internet with that too. Moorhouse's stream just like froze right up when I said that. So.
That's it. I'm getting out of here.
Tag Team of the Year. Tag Team of the Year in 2019. I could just troll everybody and just say Rock and Roll Express just due to the fact that they came out of nowhere.
They've had a hell of a year. They've won titles everywhere.
And in fact, that's what I'm going to go and do. Is it's not trolling, it's a fact. The NWA World Tag Team Champions, the Rock and Roll Express, are the Tag Team of the Year in 2019 because Ricky Morton at 60 plus years old or however old he is doing Canadian Destroyers in the ring. Like, this guy was turning heads at the Crockett Cup back in April, doing a Canadian Destroyer on Jay frickin' Briscoe, of all people. They booked in the first round match for that NWA Tag Team title tournament for the Crockett Cup, the Briscoes versus Rock and Roll Express, and everybody kind of cringed when they looked at that, and they were like, oh my god, this is going to be a car wreck. And it actually was a serviceable, about 8-minute match that was incredible. It was a match of the night contender before Aldis and Skrull just tore it down, right? But I mean, that was just wow. And then they jump on to the NWA bandwagon. They're not only on NWA, they're involved in angles on All Elite Wrestling. You know, you see them all over the place. They're WWE Hall of Famers. I mean, yeah, that's your Tag Team of the Year, folks.
Yeah, no, that's a great choice. There's nothing funny. They've lost a lot of steps, but they've done a good job of promoting themselves. Again,
it's a evolution thing. It's like Jericho. I mean, like, he's lost some steps, but you know, they've evolved in other ways, right? And so have these guys. I mean, like, you have Ricky Morton, who can still cut a promo at his age in the business and that stuff. Mind you, I mean, like, there's been managers that have been older than him in pro wrestling in the past and that stuff and everything, like your Arnold Skolins and stuff like that can talk and could, you know, do matches and everything, like your Fred Blassies and everything. So, I mean, that's not surprising. What's surprising is the guy has adopted the moveset of, like, half of his students. So,
my Tag Team of the Year is going to be Lucha Brothers. Mm-hmm. Everywhere they go, they have tremendous matches, tremendous feuds, and they're the top billing tag team. Whether it be fighting the Young Bucks or being in AAA, fighting Briscoes, I think, go down there, or Jeff Jarrett.
Honorable mentions here, of course, would be Santana and Ortiz. They're part of that Inner Circle group in AEW. Yeah, exactly. The Revival in WWE.
North and as well.
Impact Wrestling's the North. Yep, exactly. And they're gearing up for a big thing on WrestleMania weekend with a highly sought after match with the American Wolves of all people. So that could be pretty exciting. Yep, exactly. That's going to be fun. So yeah, Tag Team Wrestling is back in a big way. So Most Outstanding Wrestler is up next. So the Most Outstanding Wrestler of the Year in 2019, to me, the most outstanding wrestler of 2019 would be Le Champion Chris Jericho.
Yeah.
I know that I know that we're talking about Okada, we're talking about everything, but we're talking about a guy who lended instant credibility to the AEW title, so much so that this past week at Wrestle Kingdom, when the hot rumor was going around that, hey, New Japan and AEW may have a working relationship already, that the Tanahashi-Jericho match was one of the highly sought-after matches on night 2, and that's how important that AEW belt has become. It's the second, it might even be 1B to the WWE title or the Universal title right now over on the WWE side. And I think Jericho even lends more credibility as a champion to that. I mean, honorable mentions there, of course, Okada, Nick Aldis, so on and so forth with that. But the most outstanding wrestler for the year to me is Chris Jericho.
I went with Okada. He's won the belt at the event that you were at.
Yes! And he still continues his run. Well,
if you didn't know, Kellen went to the G1 Super.
Well, he continued his run until Naito beat him in the Tokyo Dome here about a week ago.
But that's a long run. That's almost a full year.
Yeah, exactly. So that's it. That's in today's business is a lifetime. So that's good. And Okada will get the belt back in 2020, I think. I think somewhere down the line, I think that especially if Kenta ends up beating Naito for the IWGP Heavyweight belt here, which could happen, I think that Okada will be maybe Kenta's competitor coming up at Wrestle Kingdom, at 15 or something like that, or so on and so forth. Although I did really like the double gold dash idea that they did this year. That was very interesting to do it. I just kind of hope that they don't phase out the Intercontinental belt like they're talking about, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah, we don't know what Okada's plans are right now. I think the only thing we know is it looks like Ibushi and Tanahashi are going to be a tag team soon. Yeah,
and they're going for the IWGP tag belts at New Beginning already against Finlay and Juice, so that'll be good. The Lou Fez, this is our final award, the Lou Fez Ric Flair Award for Wrestler of the Year in 2019. To me, again, I'm going to go with Kazuchika Okada over in New Japan as the Wrestler of the Year. Again, he was the kind of the one remaining big name left to build that card around that G1 Supercard and sell it out. And then on top of that, just kind of build and have this great feud throughout 2019 with all these different contenders, and that's just a myriad of contenders and everything across the board. And I think he was one of the more dynamic champions in 2019. An honorable mention again to the men that I mentioned earlier, Chris Jericho, Nick Aldis. So, I mean, that's along the lines there too. And, for honorable mention as well, PCO. So, I mean, like, for somebody at his age, at 51 or 52 years old, to reinvent himself, and now all of a sudden he's Ring of Honor World Champion. There we go. But Okada is my pick for Wrestler of the Year.
My Wrestler of the Year this year is going to be the NXT champion for the most part of the year, Adam Cole.
Baby.
Yeah. He's had a tremendous year. He's had pretty much every takeover. He's had the match of the night, as well as he's one of the only guys not named Gargano in WWE who's getting Meltzer's attention. Mm-hmm. Just a tremendous year. I don't think he has any plans to go in the main roster. He has such a good gig right now in NXT.
Exactly. And I'm just going to add one extra one here for us because it's the end of the decade. I wanted to ask you, Moorhouse, who's your pick for Wrestler of the Decade for every year from 2010 to 2019? Who's the one man that you'd take as Wrestler of the Decade?
Oh, there we go. That guy. That guy. AJ Styles.
Oh, okay. I thought you were going to go down his page. I was like, well, he's coming back. But I mean, like, no, AJ Styles. All right, cool. Oh, yeah.
AJ Styles started 2010 in Impact, left with creative differences, went to New Japan, became the top Gaijin there, then left New Japan, became WWE and immediately got the trust of Vince McMahon, was able to carry the torch for a while.
Yep, exactly, for sure. My pick for wrestler of the decade in the 2010s, and this is probably not a name that was going to be expected, is, and you're doing the motion. I was there to see him win the title at WrestleMania 30 in New Orleans. That's Daniel Bryan. Dude came from basically hired, fired, and then hired again in 2019 by WWE, to building himself up to kind of a mid-card and then a upper-card heel over on SmackDown. Then all of a sudden involved in one of the biggest embarrassments of the decade, a 8-second match at WrestleMania in 2012 with Sheamus for the World Heavyweight title. Then on top of that, thrusted into the spotlight in 13 with Kane and this tag team and that stuff, and their wars with the Shield and so on and so forth. We go to 2014 and the groundswell movement behind him. He goes from not being involved in creative at all for WrestleMania in 2014 to all of a sudden getting thrown right into the main event title picture. And then on top of it all, 15, he has to relinquish that belt due to injury. And then in 15 becomes Intercontinental Champion, relinquishes that due to injury. And then we find out that, hey, he's retiring because of the brain lesions and whatever. And so we think, well, there goes the end to a promising career. It's Bobby Orr, essentially, in pro wrestling and that stuff. But wait, 2018 comes around, he gets a clean bill of health, comes back, and immediately reinvents his career again, to the point where he is such a just a hated and despised heel now on SmackDown and that stuff going into 2019. He's just basically an eco-terrorist that's a technical wrestler at this point. And he'll go ahead and go through 2019 just solid as a rock like that, and now involved in this feud where he's with The Fiend and going into the Rumble and that stuff and everything. So yeah, Daniel Bryan is my pick for the wrestler of the 2010s. So. Oh, you can't talk. Oh, okay.
There's a snowblower right now, so I'm going to get a lot of snow audio.
Well, you know what? I think that's as good a time as any to put a wrap on this, for sure. So, anyways, I'm Kellen Nitro. You can follow me on Twitter at Kellen Nitro, on Instagram at Kellen Nitro, etc., and so on and so forth. You can subscribe to our channel, tinyurl.com/Nitromaniac TV. Moorhouse, you can follow him on all the socials. He's on Twitter at House of Moore. He's on Instagram at Mr. Moorhouse. You can follow him.
Yeah, I have Twitter, I have the Instagrams, and that's about it.
I'm
not like these. I don't have these old Snapchats and whatnots.
That's all you need. That's all you need. That's it. That's all you need now in 2020 and so on and so forth. So thank you very much for sitting in with us as we start a brand new decade. And yes, next year will be the 2020 Meltzer Awards, but we'll, of course, take note of what happens here and that stuff throughout 2020 and beyond. So later days, happy wrestling watching, folks. See ya.
Later.